Well, welcome back to Aphesis Unchained. We are excited to have a special segment again today. We are grateful to have several individuals in the house, and I'm just thankful that our church is in a place where we have some great, strong families, and we have many members who are able to join us on this forum, on this platform. And just to remind everybody that Aphesis Unchained segment is meant to be a blessing to our church. Our goal and the vision of this segment isn't really to necessarily reach other churches and their issues and their circumstances, although there's obviously cross-bleeding and those types of things. But really, it's all about us. I want us to be reminded that as a church, make sure to plug into this Aphesis Unchained segment. I guarantee it'll be a blessing. The other good thing is that you get to learn more and more about people in your church, because we have some new individuals who are joining this segment with us. I'm excited. Let me go ahead and throw it around the room. I'm excited to have several Barkleys with us. There's more than one Barkleys in the house. And let me just introduce Brother Dan Barkley first, if he could say hello.
Hello. It's good to be here. Thank you, Brother Huba, for allowing me to be here.
Awesome. And the other Barkley, let me just say this. There's about a billion Barkleys. And so I had to be a little more specific. Brother Brandon Barkley's here with us.
Afternoon.
All right. And of course, we have Brother McCommon with us.
Greetings and salutations.
Yes. And Brother Ben Reeves.
Welcome, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity.
I love it. And of course, always with me and one of my favorite humans is Brother Matmon.
I'm here, guys. Yeah.
All right. We are all here and hopefully in one accord. Before we really get into it and talk about what the topic is today, I do want to recap. Man, how many of you enjoyed Pentecost Sunday?
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Man,
Awesome.
great day.
Yes, sir.
Grateful to Pastor Luther Sanchez, a friend of mine, to make the trip over to us and bless us. And we counted two somersaults.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 somersaults. That's how you know we're going to have a short summer.
Yeah.
2 somersaults. And so we had a great service, great response, incredible altar service. A lot of incredible things happened that day. And then, wow, what about Memorial Weekend? How about you all? Did you guys get to grill out or anything?
No, I didn't grill. I don't even remember. Saturday is almost a blur to me, to be honest with you. But did get a chance to go and minister in Orangeburg, so that was cool.
How was
especially
that?
having my family there with us. It was funny, we take for granted sometimes having a decent place to go to eat after service, and Brother Elders will tell you, he and I talked about it. It's just few and far between in Orangeburg. Let me just say that. So trying to find a place to eat afterwards was a little bit of a challenge. But service was great. We had a good time in service. So
awesome. If you guys ever get a chance to, Brother Elders has his church services on YouTube and House of Refuge in Orangeburg. And so I had some time and I wanted to plug in and listen to one of my favorite preachers. And so I got to see that House of Refuge there also has their own Matmon, Harrell. There's an individual who looks exactly like him.
He's about 3 feet taller than I am.
A little bit taller. Yeah,
No, he's tall.
He's about
Brother Elders is tall too. Yeah. I went into the prayer room when we got there to give him a hug. And we prayed and gave him a hug afterwards and stuff. We were getting ready for service. And I forgot how tall he was. I'm not a short guy, right? And so I go in for a hug, and I'm going, wait, I got to get on my tippy toes, to kind of reach up to him. And then there's a guy in his church that's even taller than he is. I think he's got to be like 6'5", 6'7", maybe. Yeah. He's tall.
Yeah. Me and my wife were watching, like, is that Matt? No,
yeah.
No, is that? It was like that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I grilled hot dogs last night.
Oh,
so
nice.
I had to get that in, of course. So anybody else have any delicious barbecue or anything?
We did the same thing, but we did it Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If
I
you
wasn't
didn't do
doing
that,
anything Monday.
I don't even know if you had a Memorial Day. Right?
We went shopping yesterday on Monday,
Well, that's part of it. That's
Yeah,
part of it.
Sam's.
Adds to it.
but no
Shopping.
grilling. I know.
Oh, you're
I had some
getting
pizza
weak,
at Sam's.
brother.
I mean, does that count? They cooked me,
We went bowling.
Okay.
It's an American thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Memorial Day, in
Yeah.
memory.
Had fun with the family. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Besides that, I know that we've got some great things happening coming up. We have this Saturday our first interest meeting in Camden. We will be meeting at the American Patriot Coffee Company right downtown Camden, and we'll be meeting there at 2 p.m. And listen, we'd love to meet you if you're there. Please, I'd love to buy your coffee, and so you can meet us if you are just listening from that area. But even if our church members, I'd buy your coffee as well. We want to have a great showing and just show our smile and let them know who we are. We're excited to be launching our Camden satellite campus in September. And so just looking forward to great things. But we also, right around the corner, we have our district camp meeting, which is going to be a couple weeks from now. I believe it starts on the 12th and runs through the 14th of June. And it's right here in our city at the Doubletree Hotel. And just to let you know how much I love it, I am canceling midweek service so that we can be faithful to that meeting. The services start that Wednesday night. So please make every effort to be a part of that camp. I'm telling you, I have insider information that camp meeting probably won't be in Columbia forever. And so we need to take advantage of camp meeting while it's in our backyard. And so I don't even like walking to my mailbox. That's a distance. And I'm like, but let alone driving multiple hours to go to a camp meeting.
Yeah.
I'd like it when it's just 20, 30 minutes down the road. So
take advantage.
make it a priority to be a part of that. And but the other thing that's coming up in June is Father's Day. And Father's Day is why we're kind of here. We're here for a special segment all about fatherhood. And I am honored that our guests are with us today. And we opened up in prayer, and I prayed a prayer of thankfulness that God, thank you that we have fathers who are in our church, who are good fathers, who are doing what they're supposed to. They're pressing that go button to make sure that they're able to help their families and do the right things. But we live in a day and age where fatherlessness is a huge issue, where fathers are not as abundant as they used to be. And we need to talk about that. We need to discuss that and how, I don't know if there's an exact answer. Maybe there is. Maybe we can be super biblical about it and be like, get in church, live right, and it will follow. But besides those things, it really, I don't understand. And I'm speaking to the fathers here. I don't understand how a father can just kind of walk away from the children. It's hard for me to understand because I know who's in this room with me. These are fathers who love their kids, love their children, and have gotten up at the earliest of hours to go work jobs. And I have one guy here who's had an actual rebar go through his hand. And Brother Dan Barkley, or not Dan, but Brandon Barkley, he at his job, he's dangerous. They're throwing metal all over the place. He has a picture of a piece of rebar through his hand, and he just, why was he doing that? Because he had a family, and he had to work. And did you go back to work the next day, or did you have any time off?
It was a weekend.
A weekend. Oh, so
Yeah.
We're good. Get well soon.
We'll see you Monday.
Yeah. I missed my uncle's funeral that afternoon. I was supposed to be a pallbearer.
Oh no!
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was like the worst weekend ever.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't too fun.
No, I mean a loss, and then
Right.
going through that. But
I mean, I love my kids, but rebar, I don't know. That might be the line.
It was actually a file. It was a
That might
6-inch
be the
file.
kicker. Huh?
You need to get hurt on a Monday and get a few work days off.
That's exactly.
He was smart about it.
Trust me, he can do that too.
well, let me ask you, fathers. I got a couple questions. What was those first few days like? And of course, Brother Brother Dan Barkley's with us. This is going to really date him a little bit, but what was those first few days of fatherhood like for you?
Well, it was confusing, and it was exciting. I mean, the first time I held Brandon, I thought I was going to explode. I can't really describe the feeling. And so it was a time of confusion and trying to figure all this stuff of being dad out. But it was good. It was good.
Brandon's the oldest. Is he the only child?
He's the only one.
Only one. Okay. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, well, you know Brandon. That's the reason I just won.
That's right. Yeah.
No, I'm just teasing.
One and done.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
Wow. What about y'all? Anyone else have that?
I would say that, first few days, first few months, first few years, actually even to now, I just depend so much on my wife, to be honest with you. Like in the first few days, the first few months, I was confused. Similar, I was like, this is an actual human. This is this is a human being. Like, I have to do everything for this baby. And again, I know it's cliche to say, but I didn't realize you could love someone so much, another human being so much. Like, I love my wife, and I love my parents, and I love my family. But I love my children. Honestly, it's scary because there have been times where sitting at a playground and a random kid throws sand at my daughter, and I jump from my seat and
Protection.
So it just stirs that up. But again, to answer your question, it was scary and it was confusing, and I really leaned really heavily on my wife for just help and guidance and all of that. And my wife is a natural mother. It's what God's called her to be. So she was instrumental in those times, for sure.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think one thing, a misconception is when you have kids that you're supposed to know everything. And I think the one thing I did learn was you have to take it one day at a time, and you learn as you go. And I 100% agree. If I didn't have Ariana, I wouldn't make it. Again, no other woman would definitely give me a chance. So there's that.
You got that going for you.
But 100% agree. Just having a strong spouse and someone that also is learning as they go, but seems to be a natural at it. It's just been so great for me and a blessing, and I'm extremely lucky.
Yeah.
It was just, I would say for me, it was like amazing, chaotic, scary, everything all rolled into one. Like I said, it felt like you're going to explode.
Yeah.
It was the first couple of days, especially. It was just, what do I do? Like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And do it right. You know what I mean?
My oldest actually did explode, and I've got a picture of that first bowel movement.
100%.
Speaking of that,
it was not. I was not happy. That's got a question. Do I really want to do this for the next 18, 26 years nowadays?
I've got a picture of Brandon, and he's changing. I won't say which kid, but he's changing one of the kids' diapers.
Yeah.
And he's got toilet paper shoved up in his nose. But he's doing it.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
He's
Do what you
gonna
gotta do. That's right.
Oh man, my first child was Ivy, and she was an interesting birth because my wife had preeclampsia, and she came like 2 months early, and so it was a while. Oh, she came on Thanksgiving morning, and that morning was terrifying for me. That first impression of fatherhood was immediately making deals with God on the spot, asking God, saying, God, I will do this if you do this. And I remember those moments. I remember they quickly brought us into the hospital, and within probably 10 minutes, they told her that she's going to have her child. And so she was a little delirious from her preeclampsia, and she couldn't tell you who the current president was. But when she heard that they had to take the child, she knew that was too early. She said, no, it's too early. and she had the foreknowledge, the wherewithal, I should say, that this is not right. This is not good. But in order to save my wife and her blood pressure, you had to take the child. And so they put me in this room where she would be later, and I'm there by myself. And I remember that moment. Like I could go back there, right? I can taste the air. I can see the hue of the lights, and I just remember just intercessory prayer immediately for God and asking those things. Then they came and got me and brought me to my wife, and there she was set up on the table, and we had Ivy faster than I've had Big Macs through drive-thrus.
Wow.
It was 15 minutes.
Wow.
And I kid you not. It was the fastest process, and I didn't really get to really exhale when I heard her cry.
Sure.
When I heard her cry, I don't know. It was just God's way of saying, I've got this.
Yeah.
I have a friend in Florida who recently just gone through the same situation. His wife had to deliver their child, and their child was 2 pounds, 3 ounces. And, I messaged them saying, listen, this is my scenario. I said, my daughter has a job at Publix. She has a boyfriend at church. She bought her first car. I said, she's going to graduate next year. I said, I just wanted to remind him that, God gives life, and He gives it more abundantly.
Yes,
and just to have that faith, it's
Amen.
going to work
That's for
out.
sure.
But I agree with the sentiment of this table, and I think every father feels this way. Dear Lord, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And that uneasiness may have been that dad moment. I don't know. For me, when I think of, what was that moment that I'm a dad. I know I'm a dad. Was it that diaper change? Was it, for me, my daughter Ivy's at a young age. She's probably 2 years old, and she's getting into things. And I turned my back for a second, and she comes walking around the corner with a little bottle, and I look, what do you got, sweetheart? And I look in there, and it is like waterproof solution for your shoes.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, how did you get this open?
Yeah.
And she just got and I'm like thinking, dear Lord, she drank this.
Drink it.
And so I look at the label, and it's like, don't ingest. What's
Of
this?
course.
Ingest it. And I
Touch it, don't
my
smell it.
first dad moment was like, my wife is not here. She's going to be really mad at me.
Yeah, she will.
And thank God my daughter Ivy doesn't remember this. She's too young. But I pick her up, and I rush over to the sink, and I turn her upside down, and I stick my finger down her throat trying to get her to throw up.
Yeah.
And that poor little girl is just gagging and, just doesn't know her poor dad's attacking her in that moment, and the thought process of that. And when she's finally choking on whatever, she gets it. I think whatever she got it out.
Yeah.
And so I finally call the number on the back, and I'm like, hey, this is what happened. And this is what they say. Okay. I just have her drink some more water, and I think she'll be all right. I'm like, and I'm looking at her, and her poor eyes are bloodshot from the torture I put her through. And that's where the dad moment hit me, that maybe this is just dads, maybe it's men, that we just go right to not reading the instructions first and going right into emergency mode and thinking we know best. And for me, that's what it was. How about you? Did you guys have that dad moment where you're like, okay, I'm now a dad?
Yeah, I think mine was probably pretty immediate. In the hospital, I remember I have a photo of Micah, and I'm holding him in my hands, and I just kind of reach down to kiss his cheek. And in the picture, when I look at the picture afterwards, he's staring at the camera. But I think I remember that moment being solidified for me because he had actually been in the hospital for 3 days with jaundice, and couldn't go home. And we having had a miscarriage, a few years before that, we were hoping that this would be just the perfect pregnancy, right? Perfect delivery, that nothing, no complications. But with him being in the hospital for those 3 days, that was sort of a time for us to just really reflect and really pray and seek God, and hope that everything will work out, that he wouldn't have any long-standing complications. But for me, that moment of just holding him when we finally got the chance to take him home after those 3 days was like, yeah, I'm dad now. Like, I'm in dad territory. I'm going to go buy all the hats and the t-shirts, and whatever else made me look like a dad. But that was the moment for me right there when he had a chance to go home. So
I remember that. I remember visiting.
Yeah.
He was in that tanning bed.
Yep.
That's what he was.
And then Levi, same thing.
Yeah.
But by then, second kid, it's like,
Yeah.
he'll be all right.
Brandon, you've had multiple dad moments, probably.
Yeah.
Let's have one right now.
The thing that sticks out in my mind was when we first brought Kyler home. We had all my family, especially my dad's side of the family, was in the house, and me and April were upstairs in the nursery. And I was helping her change his diaper, and he was crying, screaming, like inconsolable. And she was in the middle of changing, and I laid my head on his chest to try to calm him down, and he peed right in my mouth.
Oh, no.
I mean, straight stream right in my mouth. And I ended up having to finish the job because April was on the ground crying, laughing at me so hard. And everybody downstairs couldn't figure out what was going on.
That's the first time I've heard that story.
That was,
that ought to be written down.
that was like, I just,
Documented forever on the
okay,
gosh.
dad now, I guess. I guess that's it.
You're not a dad until you get peed in the mouth.
dad mouth.
Baby pees in the mouth.
Oh my gosh.
He couldn't have been any straighter. Just
Oh man.
Yeah.
Anybody else have that moment?
I didn't have that moment, but to be honest with
Thank
you,
God.
There's still time.
yeah, there's still time for sure. Nehemiah, buddy,
Root
that
for
guy,
you.
that kid, man. If anyone, it's gonna be that kid, 100%. And he's just gonna look at me.
He's
He's just gonna give me that look.
Straight eye contact.
Boy. I think the moment I realized really I was a dad, this was like a few years later. I think Jessa was like probably 4 and Ellie was 2, and we went to Florida, and we were staying at a hotel, and this was the beginning of the trip. We were staying at a hotel. It was tropical storm was coming through, so it was like tropical weather. And so my wife and Jessa, they took a shower, and this is like 11 o'clock at night. And my daughter decides to slip in the shower, and she splits her chin wide, like from here to here, just wide open. So about 12:30 in the morning, I'm in the van with the Honda Civic with my wife. Ellie's 2. She don't know what's going on. Jessa's screaming and crying. There's blood everywhere. I'm trying to find an ER in the middle of a torrential downpour. And we finally find this ER at Children's ER randomly that happened to be open. Run her in there, and I'm having to hold her hand while she's getting like 10 stitches. She got like 8 to 10 stitches.
Wow.
And the kicker was, we had all these plans. We were going to do all this stuff. We were going to go get in the water. We were going to get in the pool. And it was put to an end that night. Because the doc's like, nope, no getting in the water for the rest of the trip. So I think at that moment, I was like, yep, this is I'm a dad now.
Dad life.
You know, got to take care of things and find solutions to problems that you didn't see coming.
Yeah.
And now you have to do it. Wow.
Now, I know Brother Ben has his fair share of, I think you own a hospital wing, right? All the payments your daughter has put in children, right?
Oh, there are too many to count, and thankfully for me, a lot of them happened when I was deployed. So I just had
Count as dad moments?
those don't count really, but I do. The most recent one, Ariana came over and was like, "Hey Ben, come look at what Alora's doing," and I'm like, "Okay." You know, I figured Ariana was just reading too many things on the internet, getting worked up about things. Right. It happens.
Yeah.
And then Alora is having like little, what's called infantile spasms, little seizures. And I was like, wow, you weren't making that up. She's really doing something. And it was very, we all had to immediately get in the the car, load up the circus, and 3 of them were sleeping on the. We were all in the ER all night, waiting, and then
Oh yeah.
There's been so many. Yeah, that's stuff like that. You just. All the books in the world can't really prepare you. You just have to react and do what you think is best for your child and your family in the moment, and look at the consequences later.
For sure.
I wouldn't even argue that I think a realist definition of dad life, if I can say it this way, is when you get to that place where you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
When you realize you're not the specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh dear God, like God, you have to intervene,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we all have those moments, and some are way more. I remember hearing of that, and I remember us having some of the kids over at the house for a little bit while you guys were taking care of that season. And I'll just say that I'm so grateful God's a healer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she hasn't had those issues, right, since.
No, she hasn't. She's been.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Praise God. And I know your son,
Yeah.
Brother Matmon, has had seizures as well.
Yeah. And he had 3 early on. I think the first one, gosh, it's been so long ago now, I don't even remember. But yeah, it was a little bit different than infantile spasms, but febrile seizures whenever his temperature went up. And I think the last one that happened was in 2020, actually, February 2020. And I just remember being there, and I was just honest with God. I said, you got to do something. Like, I don't think I can handle this.
Yeah.
Right. Seeing my son go through this every season, every time he gets a cold, every time he gets a fever, luckily they say kids grew out of it, and he has. Like I said, that was the last one. So it's been 4 years since his last one. So, and I'm thankful.
Scripture really points to a dad who emphasizes that, where his son has, demonic stuff happening in him, and he don't know what to do. He takes him to the disciples swing and a miss, and he is really let down. And they finally bring him to Jesus, and Jesus says, if you could believe, I believe, but help my unbelief. I am in a place I've lost all. I don't know what else to do. And so I think that is the realest of dad life.
Absolutely.
Moments that we try to figure things out. I think us dads, we try to, I'll be honest, and my wife gets on me about this, and I tease her a little bit when I do select the right answer. How many of you are ever taking a test and you don't know the answer, but you select C, right?
Yeah.
Color that bubble.
When in doubt. Yep.
Because statistically, C is the one to go with.
Yep.
And I would say 65% of the time it works 100% of the time.
That's right. That's right.
And
Absolutely.
Your math is just awesome.
It's foolproof. It's foolproof.
And so, I feel there's a dad in Scripture as well who kind of maybe falls in that category where, he probably feels everything is good. I'm just doing everything right, and everything's going the right way until it's not. And that's probably, if I could say, is Jesus's dad early on in his life. Joseph. They go to see and have, this time of feast and they celebrate, but they go home, and literally 3 days later, this boggles my mind, and it's in Luke chapter 2. 3 days later, they're like, where's Jesus? Where's that rascal at? Where is Jesus? And I always look at that thinking, how did it get to that place? I have no doubt, and as you all understand, our wives are busy.
Yeah.
Right? And so as fathers, as protectors, we're supposed to protect. But I think there was a moment where Joseph he thinks he probably has everything under control and things are going good until mom says, where's Jesus? And he's like, well, I had him well, or he's right here because I put him well. He's right here somewhere. And he realizes, oh, Lord, I haven't checked on him. And so they go back, they retrace their steps, not just steps, their entire journey, and they find themselves back in the city. And I want to read a passage of it, verse 45 of Luke chapter 2. And when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem, seeking him. And it came to pass that after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. And all that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said unto him, Son, why hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. There's this moment here that's so interesting because obviously any parent is grateful and thankful they found their missing child after 3 days. But then there's a realistic anger that comes into a parent, and you're about to see Jesus probably strangled here in reality. But he said unto them, verse 49, How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? And of course, that was a perplexing reply to them. And of course, we have insight of who Jesus was and what he was doing and his whole motive on earth. But it brings up a question really about how Jesus is explaining he's here to do something that is not just his will, but his Father's will. And it's something that I kind of want to ask us, even too, like, what are those principles? What are those hand-me-down principles? Or what are those business influence principles that maybe you were given by your father or parent, and maybe you want to continue that business, continue that family business per se? What are some things that you want to make sure you install in your children? Or maybe highlight something that's important to install in your children?
Yeah, so there are a few things that you can learn. I learned from my parents. One is working hard and no shortcuts. So I think I've tried to instill in my kids that hard work. If you work hard, then there are no excuses, and there are no shortcuts. You have to work hard to get where you want to go. And my parents always, anytime I had I don't know if I'm famous for it, but thinking and coming up with ways to bypass certain things and get to somewhere before I'm really supposed to be there, as sometimes we all do. Right. But that doesn't always work. Sometimes you just have to follow the process and put in the work, put in the study, and you'll get to where you're going to go. And you just can't take any shortcuts. And I've tried to teach all my kids that. We'll see, if they've caught on yet. Maybe only time will tell. I'm hoping at least half of them. It's good math. Half of them will catch on. Then I'll be set.
That's right.
But yeah, I think those two principles are something that I really try to pass on to them.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think in that same vein, I tell my boys all the time, I won't beat you up for trying hard, even if you fail. And there have been moments where they've been disappointed in themselves. Maybe they didn't get the grade they were looking for, or maybe they didn't get because they're both taking karate, maybe they didn't get the belt promotion that they were looking for. And, it's proud to see one time, for example, one instance, Micah actually decided that he didn't want to be promoted because he didn't feel like he earned it. It was a proud moment for me, and I said, hey, that's your decision. And I think it goes back to, hey, if you didn't work hard enough, if you don't feel you worked hard enough for this thing, like you didn't learn in the process, maybe you talking about karate, maybe you punched just right, or you had the right form, but you don't really feel like you're taking anything away from it. Go ahead, repeat that belt, and maybe that's just going to make you all the more better at the craft and whatever it is. So again, in that same vein, just try your best, and even if you fail, I'm going to be rooting for you.
That's really good. Is there, for me, I think when this type of question, is it something that also ties into your legacy? Is there something that you want, not to feel morbid, but we're all going to go the way of the dodo bird.
That's true.
Become extinct.
Yeah.
And, what are maybe some things that, just like those principles that you want your children to not forget?
I would like for my son, my grandchildren, to remember that there's nothing more important than their walk with God.
Amen.
there is nothing more important than that, and faithfulness. My dad, we were going back to maybe the previous subject a little bit. My dad, if he said it once, he said it 1,000 times or more. Whatsoever thy hands find to do, do it with your might.
Amen.
Over and over. And I probably quoted that to Brandon a few times too. And so he taught me, like Ben was saying, he taught me to work hard.
Yeah.
And so I have done that. And then he taught me faithfulness.
Yeah.
We were at church no matter what, no matter how deep the snow got, no matter how sick we were. I mean, I've gone to church and had to sit in the side room because I had the measles or something,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. I mean, it's not necessarily recommended, but we just didn't stay home.
Yeah.
I had my appendix taken out. Of course, it's different back then, but I had my appendix taken out on Thursday, and on Sunday I was in Sunday school.
Wow.
You know, we just didn't stay home. And so hard work, like Ben said, and faithfulness is what I really would like to leave instilled in my children, my grandchildren.
Yeah. It's good. Speaking from because we have a father-son duo at the table, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that's been the case?
Yeah, and he stole my answer, by the way, because he drilled that your most important thing in the world is your walk with God.
Yeah.
So that was my answer, but he said it well.
It's good. It's good. For me, I was thinking about my dad and what he would say, some dadisms. Yes. My dad would say this a lot, and it's not necessarily what he would want his legacy to be, but he said this term, study and make money. And he would say that all the time, even if he would say it to my cousins, everybody. My dad worked physically hard his entire life. And one thing he did not want us to have is that burden, that hardship. And so he would install in us, make sure you study. And if you study, you'll be rewarded as such, and you won't hurt. You'll make the funds you need. But one thing that I remember about, when you think about a term like that, you could probably assume somebody's just focused about making money.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case. My dad was very much so a giver. He still is to this day. Faithful. I can remember something that I want to always share with my children is, how important reverence and respect is. I remember growing up being taught, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and that type of response, but just respecting authority, but the ultimate authority, which is God, and doing so with your livelihood, paying your tithes, giving God offering, that type of was just inbred into me. And I remember as a young kid, before church, getting dressed and walking over to my dad's room, and there was my dad in front of his dresser, and he had this little box where he kept his watch and his wedding ring, and he had some change in there, and he would hand me a quarter for every service and say, don't forget to give to God. Always bring something to the Lord. And I remember that, and it stuck with me. And so, even with my children, as they begin to work, like, hey, who comes first? God comes first.
Right.
And just like you said, to stay faithful, to have that. There are no shortcuts. I love that. I think it's so vital. I will remember my father for being a guy who worked himself to the bone. Even to this day, he aggravates me when I try to help him, and he wants to jump in and help as well. Just the other day, I stopped by his house to trim this giant bush on the side of his house. I have a particular set of trimmers that extends the right tool for the job, and a ladder knocks it out. But my dad will go out there in the heat of the day and act like he needs to get out there and help. I'm like, Dad, just sit down, relax. I got this. And I told him to go hang out with my mom and my daughter that I brought over. Nope, my dad's out there sweating it up down there, and he's just out of breath. And I'm like, Dad, this is, but that's just who he's going to be. At one time, for many years, he served this church by cleaning the church.
Yeah.
And I purposely, wanted to get someone else to get to that position of cleaning, because my dad will clean this church and die in this church doing so. And I don't want to come to the church one day and see my dad on the floor lifeless because he was, I can see him with a sponge in one hand and the Lysol spray in the other hand. Yeah. And I'm like, but that's how my dad would love to go out. Yeah. Serving God, doing whatever he can, working hard. Yeah. And so I hope when he hears this, he understands that the lesson has been learned. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enjoy your retirement. Yeah. Let us serve you. Let us do that. But those are things that I want my children to take into effect as well. Yeah. Because we're all going to leave something. We're all going to leave a legacy, whether it's a good thing. Because, one of my kind of last questions I want to ask ourselves, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want to, kind of be portrayed? If you are going to, as a father, do whatever you can, and we get to that place where we've fought the good fight, we did everything. What is that one thing you want your children to always remember you when you're gone? Yeah,
I was going to say, and this kind of ties to the last one too, about something I think that's an important principle for us as men, specifically as men, to teach our children, is how to love people. We don't hear that enough coming out of a man's mouth. One of the things we go to, which we should, is teach him how to work hard, teach him how to make a living, teach him how to support his family. But I think we have to also, as men, model what it looks like to love other people, because if Christ is our model, he's our perfect model. John 3:16, for God so loved the world, so loved the world that he gave. And throughout life we're gonna run into so many different people, so many different personalities. But if our children, especially our young men, if they don't know how to love other people, I think that their relationships are going to suffer. What they do for God can suffer. It doesn't make, if there's a calling on his life or her life to say be a pastor. If you don't love people, your calling is going to be in the trash, right? It's not going to work. And so having that skill, being a pastor, being a minister is a calling, but having that skill of love, it's just what it is. It's a skill, and you have to marry those things together to truly serve God and to truly serve in the ministry. And so I think for me, tying those two questions together, above anything, I think teaching my boys specifically how to love others, how to love themselves, and how to love others is something that I want to definitely leave behind.
I think, and going back to that question and kind of tying together, my dad growing up was not a man of a lot of words, and he didn't speak he didn't articulate and have these long, but he always said and tried to demonstrate important principles in my life. And one thing he instilled in me that I really appreciate is the understanding that we are all imperfect. Yeah. My parents, my dad would say, we're not going to be perfect parents. We're not perfect parents. I'm not a perfect dad. There's no one perfect. And son, I don't want you to grow up with an illusion that there is a perfection out there. No one's perfect. Yeah. And he was like always instilled in me through, we always attended where service was number one priority. Church was number one priority, had to be. Serving God had to be. But it was also with the understanding that it's also a measure of grace, that we are saved by grace and that we are imperfect. And so we need that grace. And so I really appreciate that about my dad, that he instilled in me from a young age. And also the understanding that even though he wasn't a perfect father, wasn't perfect parents, that they loved me. So what I want my kids to know when I leave this world is that, I'm not going to be perfect, and I don't want them to give them the illusion that there is perfection out there, but I want them to know that I love them and that I did the best job I could as an imperfect human of setting them up and helping to instill the principles of, the Word of God. And to his point, instilling the principle of just loving people, if you're going to err, you err on the side of love. Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm.
I think what you said is beautiful. I'd like my kids to know, in a similar vein, that how I feel about my parents, that I gave them a chance, the best chance that I could, to be successful. So I know my parents, in particular took us on when I was little, came from abuse, almost killed, a lot of bad things. And my parents, saved us, and they weren't perfect. Like you said, your parents aren't perfect. Their parents weren't perfect. We go all the way back to forever with imperfect lineage. And I want my kids to see that everything I did was an attempt to help them make it, help them succeed, help them, give them a chance. I want them to remember me as someone that worked hard so they could have a chance. And I had a chance when I had a son to name him after me, but I told my wife, I'm like, no, I don't want that pressure on either one of us, on him or me. I want him to be able to be himself.
Right.
I want to raise him, give him principles, obviously we're faithful to church, do everything we can do, and he's going to make his own path. And I just want him to know that I was in the background trying to help him get there. And hopefully that, through many hours of therapy, I'm sure that they're gonna go through, probably with Brother Matmon.
Yeah, that's right.
Hopefully they see that I love them, and it's tough. You want to be perfect, and there's this illusion that you have to be perfect and that everyone else is out there perfect, but it's so false. And I've tried to tell my kids, like, everything you see is not real. This is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you said is spot on.
Yeah.
Great stuff. But
I think, one thing that stands out to me is you reap what you sow. And if we can give grace, we'll receive grace.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can give grace to maybe an imperfect moment, maybe we're shown during our season of parenting, it's going to happen. We're going to mess up in our process of parenting. And I just hope my children give me some grace. Like everyone's saying, he's so perfect that we're not specialists. There's not the perfect. There's only one good father.
Amen.
That's
I'm not
right.
going to sing it, but it is. When I think about, I want to be missed, but not grieved to the point where they spend months and months in, therapy over it.
Oh, I already told my family, boys, if I go before your mom, make sure she never gets married again.
Make
Make it hard for her.
It's okay.
Compare everyone.
Every day, that's right.
But I think,
I will haunt you.
but if you're missed, you did your job.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And I really feel so sorry. We have individuals in our own church and in other churches, moms who are single, who are doing it on their own.
Yeah.
And those children are growing up without a father, and they are those moms are doing dual duty, and that's difficult. That's unfair to them. That's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And but man, to even those moms who are doing that, I
Yes.
celebrate you and say
Yes.
Happy Father's Day on your end, because
100%.
you're doing something that
1000%.
out of your job, but you said I'll do it, and that is something. And I have a friend of mine who has a young son, one child, who lost his spouse to cancer early, and he is fathering and parenting that children on his own right now. And he's going through that single parenting moment and a season, and I believe he'll find maybe another partner. I'm not sure. We'll see what the Lord wills. But I'll just say this to those who are single, going through it. I just challenge fathers out there to be that father, to be that individual who says, you know what, there's more to just making a child. This is growing up with that child, taking on that responsibility, but also taking on that joy of parenting your children. Because I want to end this on a great note, because when the best part of being about a dad is those happy moments. I lived for those. For me, I couldn't wait for those maybe birthday moments, Christmas, when there were Christmas morning at a young age, when those children, you could give them a box. That's it. It wasn't about how expensive it was. They just found so much joy in playing in the wrapping and playing with a box but it was just the joy that you got to participate in and watching them learn a skill. I love when I taught my daughter Mercy how to fish, and she caught her first fish.
Oh yeah.
And man, that was just the smile on her face and the joy in her face, and too, the thing that else made me laugh was the jealousy of her sister. That was also fun.
That was awesome.
But what about you? What's that happy moment that makes you say, you know what, this is why I love being a dad?
You're talking about fishing.
Yeah.
The first time I took Brandon fishing, my dad had bought him a little Zebco Snoopy.
Yeah,
Reel.
Oh, yeah, Snoopy.
And
Go wrong.
so we went to a little creek down there close to where we lived, and I showed him how to cast it into the creek, and he had a bobber on it. And I said, "Now, son, I don't know how old he was, maybe 4, I don't know, but he was just a little bitty guy. Had a pair of bibbed overalls. I'll never forget it." And so, I said, "Now you watch that bobber. When that bobber goes down, it means there's a fish on there, and you jerk the pole back and reel that fish in." So he's sitting there, leaned back. You know how laid back Brandon is. He's always been that way, even more when he was little. And he was sucking his thumb and holding that rod in the other hand. And he said, "Daddy, where'd my bobber go?" I said, "Oh, son, you gotta fish. You gotta fish."
Yeah.
And so I set the hook, and so he caught his first fish. Well, I, baited the hook and threw it back in, and so he had the idea, and so he caught one. He said, "I got another one, Daddy. I got another one, Daddy." So we took those fish home, and I cleaned them and fried them. They're just little bitty bluegill.
Yeah.
And they weren't really big enough to keep, but little bitty bluegill. I battered them up and fried them. And he said, "Daddy, these are the best fish I ever ate."
Oh, I believe you.
That was an awesome day.
Yeah.
That was an awesome day.
Yeah.
What about you, Brandon? What about you? You've got so many.
Been with the tissues.
Got out the tissue box. We weep over the dead. So delicious.
There's so many moments. For me, it was watching Kyler play football. He started out at flag football like 4 years old.
Yeah.
And that next year when he got into tackle, once he realized he could hit people and it was okay.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
Yeah.
And just watching him shine throughout the years. He's just grown, but
Yeah.
he's become an awesome athlete.
Yeah.
But there's not just one moment.
Yeah.
It's all of
I'll
that.
never forget when we first ordered these chairs new chairs for the church. There's about 130 of them in here, and they got delivered. And I asked a few guys to come help, bring them in. And Kyler showed up, and it was just me and Kyler in the moment. And they come in stacks of like maybe 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm picking them up, and I'm like, okay, there's some weight to it. And I'm walking them in there, and Kyler's like outpacing me like 2 to 3. And it hit me in that moment. I'm like, I feel bad for Brandon.
Yeah.
He's got to live with this guy. I know he's outdoing him by now. I couldn't thank God for Kyler being so strong and just kept the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in you are in his shadow now.
I'm not letting him know that.
Okay.
No.
Right.
Just take that part out.
Edit it out.
Yeah.
Edit that out.
We're going to
For sure.
cut that out.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you guys so much for being a part of this particular segment, because I really do believe that there are men out there who are in a circumstance where they may not know how to be the best father. And to those, I would say, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
We don't know either.
That's for sure.
But I'm grateful that we have the perfect example. We have a father who is a father to the fatherless. He is our example in everything, and we can go to him. We can go to Christ and know that we can cry out, Abba, Father. And not only will we receive things from him, but we will be lifted, we'll be instructed, we'll be given a sensitivity, we'll know when it's appropriate to instruct, when it's appropriate to chastise. All those types of things play into that. But I want to thank our fathers that are a part of this church, Aphesis Church, because the reason we have strong families is because we have strong parents. And strong parents have to have strong mothers and strong fathers. I believe that. And I'm grateful that today that we were joined by that. Everybody who's at this table fits that category. We have strong parents, and I'm thankful for the strong fathers who joined me today. And I just want to shout your praises and say thank you for helping making my job easier, because there's a new day and age coming where people are joining churches as though they're joining some kind of country club that has a tennis court, a swimming pool, a golf club, and they expect their pastor to parent this area, parent this, do that. And I'll be honest with you, if you want me to parent, you won't like it. But it's also not my job to parent your kids. It's your job to parent your kids. And it's fathers, it's your job to father your children. And that's the job that you want. You want to take that on. We all want to take that on. I'm grateful again. Shout out to what Brother Reeves and several others said. Shout out to our spouses, our moms, because they make being a father so much easier. And if it wasn't for our spouses, I don't know how a fatherhood segment ended on us shouting out mothers, but that's the most appropriate way I know for it to happen. But thanks again for everyone who's taken the time to listen, to tune in, to plug in, and we can't wait to do another one and be back on this forum again and talk about other things. And so we're praying for you, and we hope that you have a blessed day. God bless.